The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
The Paranormal View. The Paranormal View. The Paranormal View. Time now for the Paranormal View. The Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network with your host, Henry Foister, Craig Rupp, and Jeffrey Gould. The Paranormal View.
Welcome everybody to the Paranormal View right here on the ParaX Radio Network. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight and those who are listening from around the world. We appreciate each and every one of you. I want to apologize for our show from the last couple weeks. We've had some tech issues, and especially last week kept dropping calls, and it wasn't our fault. Come to find out, it was out on the road because all the houses in our neighborhood kept having dropped calls like that. So hopefully that is fixed, and we're going to have another great show tonight. We got a great guest, and I'll bring Jeff on in just a few minutes to tell you about our guest. Tonight we got Craig Rupp with us and Jeffrey Gould.
Hello, everybody.
They are here and sounding good also. And I just want to thank you again for being here. And I tell you, I wanted to take just a minute also and remind everybody to take time and reflect on tomorrow. I know where I was at when it happened, and my jaw just dropped watching it, knowing that all those people that was in that building just was not going to make it out. And I tell you, it was a sad day, but just take some time and reflect on that tomorrow. With that, Jeffrey, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest tonight?
That I will, although I do want to sort of append them. You don't have to worry too much, because I actually had a friend who was in the second building when it was hit, and he got out.
That is good. That is good.
What had happened was when the first building got hit, everyone was horrified, and literally the office boss came out and said, all right, nothing to see, just get back to work. And everybody's like, we don't think so. And they raced down the stairs, and when the plane hit, it was about far up above them, but enough that they could feel the heat of the fire.
Wow!
When it hit. So if they had listened to their boss, then yeah, they would have been ouch. But that was not a pleasant day. I remember every day, moment of that day as well.
When things like that happen, you have to take matters into your own hands. Yeah, don't listen to the others who all they think about is money, money, money.
Right. Exactly. Go with your gut instinct.
That's it. Yeah, sure.
My mind went to a completely different place when you said it that way, but okay. I was like, yeah, okay. Well, tonight's guest is Annie Wiler, whose background is that of Irish-German roots with strong intuitive abilities. And for her, the unseen world of spirits, angels, and lost souls has always been a familiar part of her everyday life. She's the author of 2 excellent books. I've bought them, read them. They're wonderful. The House of Spirits and Whispers, the true story of a haunted house, and Spirits Out of Time, True Family Ghost Stories and Weird Paranormal Experiences, which is a collection of her family's experience even before she was around. Annie hosts haunted tea parties in her spirit-filled Victorian home nestled in Hastings, which is a sleepy Mississippi river town in Minnesota that clearly doesn't get enough coffee. Annie has been a guest on the acclaimed Coast to Coast AM radio program, and her house has been featured in several television and print news stories, investigated by teams of ghost hunters, and visited by a number of prominent psychics, including but not limited to Linda Drake and Echo Bodine. So please welcome Annie Wiler.
Welcome, Annie.
Yes. Oh, thank you
Welcome.
so much for that nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. When he was just reading that, you had some ghost hunter teams it's been in from TV. Which ones was it that come in to do your home?
Well, there was a team. The first team that came in was, at the time, their name was the Northern Minnesota Paranormal Investigators. And in Minnesota, like northern Minnesota, is known as the Iron Range, parts of northern Minnesota. And you just tend to think of people up there as strong and tough and hardworking. And these guys were from the Iron Range, and they came down, and they said that they had never gotten more EVPs in any private residence than they got in my house, and that as soon as they came in and turned on their equipment, before they even started the investigation or started asking questions, they were catching or capturing EVPs. So that was interesting to me because we do hear voices in this house. We hear whispers. We hear voices, weird, hollow, metallic sounding voices. We hear voices come over the phone. We've heard whispered messages left over, somebody leaving a regular message on the answering machine. So that was pretty interesting to me. And then last year, and the Northern Minnesota guys came back twice, and they changed their name to Haunting Research. And then I don't think they're actually doing investigations anymore. But I really liked working with them. But last year, TIPS came in, and TIPS is the acronym for, I believe it's the International Paranormal Society. And they captured super interesting to me. It's a good thing I've lived here long enough that I'm not afraid of my house anymore. I do believe that there are many spirits that come and go through my house, but I don't feel completely at the mercy of my house or anything like that. But they captured an image of an old-fashioned man in this huge dressing table mirror, and his image corresponded with what was coming through on their shack hacks, and I think it's called Ovulus or something like that.
Yeah, the Ovulus, like the ghost box.
Yeah. Yeah, which is super cool because I am terrible with technology, and Henry, you probably got that idea when I was talking or emailing you about Skype.
Right.
Okay, I'm on the website. Now what do I do? But so they had on these shack hack and this other thing, the Ovulus, they, this name was coming through, Ledoux. And my understanding of the Ovulus is that it is the original boxes or whatever are programmed with maybe 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 words that are basic words and not proper names or anything like that.
Right.
And but that the experience of Ghostbusters around the country or paranormal investigators is that words are coming through these pieces of equipment that aren't programmed in. And that's what happened here. And this name Ledoux is actually the name of a family that was prominent in my town like 150 years ago. And this picture, this image of the old-fashioned man that appeared in the mirror, when we did some research, it's like that's General Ledoux. It was very interesting. And some of that investigation was featured on the Biography Channel show My Ghost Story. And that happened just this past April, so that didn't make it onto my bio for the book. But if people want to check that episode out, the Biography Channel did a really nice job. They can go to my Facebook page, Annie Wilder author, and there's a link to the episode of that show.
Well, now when they come in and did that type of show, do they use your house, but they use other actors, you might say, doing the story?
Yeah, isn't this interesting? It's like I had no experience with Hollywood or anything like that, so it was all new and interesting to me. The way that it worked in my case is that they contacted They are always looking. The My Ghost Story show is always scouting for true ghost stories in which someone has captured visual evidence, like a video or a photograph or a film or something like that. But my understanding is they don't use paranormal investigation films that were part of an investigation. We had a local TV crew out here that had captured a lot of stuff when they were out here trying to film. Or I should say, they didn't capture ghosts, but their equipment kept malfunctioning in the house. And people's cell phones would ring even though they were turned off and stuff like that. So what they did, they had scouted out. Somebody had been to the Colorado Hotel. I think it was at Estes, the Estes Hotel, or anyway, it's where The Shining was filmed, where The Shining was written. And somebody from Minnesota had written about his account of what happened when he was there. And they contacted him to see if he had pictures that they could use for their TV show or tell a story on their show. And after talking with him, they said, they didn't think it was quite a good fit for their show, and asked him if he knew of anyone else. And he was someone that I hadn't met officially, but I guess he had been at some conference that I was speaking, at which I was a speaker. And so he gave them my name. And so the first I heard of it was that I got an email from a producer on the show, asked me some questions, and I provided the information that they were looking for and sent links to video stuff that we had, and then that was the first screening. And then they looked through all that, and it's like they decided, to explore further. And then they called me and did several phone interviews. And then, that was the next step, and they decided it was still looking good. Then they flew me out to LA to sit in their studio and tell my story. And that was, it was fun. I mean, everybody that I met was professional and really sharp and very nice and super hardworking. I mean, I cannot imagine the kind of hours people in TV production put in. But anyway, so then they filmed. Did you work in TV production? Or?
I'm an actor. I've been an actor all my life.
Okay, I'm sorry. Is this Henry or
no?
Is this
That's
Jeffrey?
Jeff.
Yeah.
That's Jeff.
Right.
Okay. And you are out in LA, so you're in the right place if you're acting. Yeah. I was extremely impressed. Like, wow, I don't know how people have the stamina to do this, but they just rocked it. And then, so then they reviewed that, and then they're, if they feel that so far all the elements are strong and would make a compelling story, then they fly a camera person out to your house to film at the actual haunted location, or wherever the haunted location is. So that's how it worked. I hope this answer wasn't too long and drawn out for a simple question, but it was pretty exciting and interesting to see how things work on a TV show, that's a national TV show.
We don't mind long answers. That means we don't have to talk as much.
Perfect. We're going to get along great.
Now,
I'm going to take a
especially me.
Especially Craig. Craig,
I was looking on your Facebook and it mentioned California. I'm like, she was in California, and it would have been great to have met you and had your book signed and everything.
And
I could have taken you to haunted places out here.
If I ever get back there, I will definitely contact you. We did have sort of a weird experience when we were in the studio for this My Ghost Story film shoot. I got done and came out, and there's a room where they put on makeup, put makeup on you and stuff. And my purse and all my stuff was in that room. And so I just went to grab it, and the next story that was going to be told was a family that investigates paranormal haunted places together. And I walked in to grab my purse. I'm in LA. I've never been in LA before. And I walked in, and all of a sudden the dad goes, "Annie?" I look over and it goes, Annie Wilder, and here it was somebody who had written me a couple of emails we had exchanged back and forth on Facebook about their family story. I had no idea, either one of us, that we were going to be on the Biography Channel show, and we ended up in the same room at the same time, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that would have been neat.
That's awesome.
I'm going to be,
go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, I will put a link tomorrow on my Facebook page to their episode of the My Ghost Story show.
Okay, excellent.
They were filmed and it ran. I haven't seen it yet, but I want to check it out. So.
And Jeff will also have the link on his page. He does a write-up of every one of our shows, plus he links our podcast to it also. So you can go to his page and read about every one of our shows and also listen to the podcast.
So your episode of Ghost Story hasn't aired yet?
It actually did. It aired in April, and then it aired again, I think about a month ago, because I got a lot of messages on Facebook again that people had seen it. So, yeah, and as I said, they did a nice job. I was a little uncomfortable in my own house walking around with a TV camera,
Right.
Probably mainly because the local producer who has filmed me at my house was a friend that I knew in grade school. But I am comfortable in my own setting and at my own pace. But sitting in a studio, and it was like this tall, you walked down this tall hallway that they had filmed Escape from Alcatraz in this building.
Right.
So it still had the set of the, prison cells and all that, and it was pitch dark. And there were like 3 guys sitting at a long table with their laptops opened up. And then I went through a little door into a 2-story studio that was also pitch black, except for a wooden chair with a spotlight on it. And they're like, you can just sit there. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is super intimidating.
Especially when they start leaning in and saying, where were you on the night of January the 16th?
That's exactly what it felt like. Exactly, the interrogation chair. And I was a little nervous about how I would look on TV. I usually wear black or brown, or if I want a splash of color, I'll wear something gray. But they said no black or brown, no dark colors, no dull colors. So I was wearing like a bright red shirt, and I felt very unlike myself. Plus,
Standing
they had
out.
fixed my
Yeah.
But they did a fabulous job. So.
Excellent.
Very happy with it.
I want to let everybody know that if you have questions, private chat them to Craig, Jeffrey, or myself, and we'll get those questions right over to Annie, and she'll be able to answer them for you. If you are listening from somewhere around the world other than here in the chat room, you can come over to para-x.com, and it will take you right into the room, and there'll be a little sign up there that says show chat. Click on the show chat, and there'll be a player on the top of the page. You click on it, and you'll be able to hear the show, and you'll be in with all these wonderful people to where you can also interact and be able to ask questions. We appreciate each and every one. So with that, I don't guess you guys have any questions yet, do you?
They didn't happen to say what number episode it was, did they? Not even. It's just there you are.
Find out in just a moment. If you.
Well,
I know this
rush,
is not
but...
really the cool way to do it on the air, but let's see. So we should keep talking. So all of you guys experienced ghosts personally?
Yeah.
Some of us.
I can actually relate to you, Annie, because the place I grew up in was haunted. So,
in a good way?
yes, I've been experienced. I never felt threatened yet, but that's what got me into this.
Okay.
Try to find out the answers. So it was kind of a blessing.
Okay. What
And
happened, if you don't mind?
Oh, Craig gets
I'm
to
sorry?
talk.
Go ahead.
I was going to say,
I'm sorry,
what was the actual ghost encounter that you had, or what kinds of ghost encounters?
A lot of shadow people, footsteps. Never heard any voices. but just things being moved and misplaced, and you'd find them later, and you know that you didn't put them there.
Right.
Just stuff like that.
I find shadow people scary in the same way that I find EVPs a little bit creepier than just knocks or crashing sounds because they're more human, you know?
See, I would love to get back in there. I only live actually a few miles away right now,
Okay.
and I would love to get back in there and actually get some EVPs to find out who was in there.
Okay. Have you asked the people for permission, the current homeowners, or?
No, to me that's unethical to approach them.
Okay.
I've left the hints out that I want to get in there. So until they contact me, but if they do, yes, I'm there.
I understand. That's cool. Well, I hope that it works out.
Well, thank you.
Now, go ahead.
I have the number, at least that's on YouTube.
All right.
It's called My Ghost Story 2.3, and then there's a parenthetical part 3, but it says season 2, episode 3.
Yeah, I got that. Yeah, the minute you said 203, I said, okay, second season, third episode. Okay, go.
Yeah.
Now I know what to look for.
Yeah, and it's the way at least the way it is on YouTube, somebody can only post. There were 6 stories in the show, and mine was the last. So the 5th and 6th story are together in this YouTube video. My part of the story actually starts at like 6 minutes and 30 seconds. But
Good.
okay.
Now, a little bit of history about you. You had a fairly good-sized family. How many brothers and sisters did you have?
7.
And did they all also experience things?
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I thought I had heard enough family ghost stories from not just, my siblings who, of course we grew up together. We had a lot of the same experiences. 6 of us were born in a 6-year period, so we're really close in age. And, between stories I'd heard about like great-grandparents and just little bits of family lore, I thought I could had enough material for a book. So my siblings, yes, most of my siblings have had some sort of paranormal or ghostly experience. And one of the more unusual ones, I think, is, if you'd like to hear it, is my brother who lives out in California. He's an air traffic controller, so most of us live around here. Everybody went to college and moved away for a while and mostly moved back to this general area. But he had, he would come back once a year or so for a visit, and he does not believe in ghosts. That's what he said. And my mom is very intuitive, and the older she gets, the more she can see of the spirit world. But she had seen for decades this little girl ghost that seemed to be following her around. And this little girl ghost was like probably 5 or 6, 7 or 8 or something, long brown hair, always braided, sort of old-fashioned clothes, like one time my mom saw her, and she had wool leggings on. And my mom saw this girl in different places that we lived. We lived in southern Minnesota. We lived out in the Black Hills of South Dakota for a while, and then we moved back to Minnesota. And then my parents moved to Wisconsin. But so she saw this girl at different times and different places in her life. And the two weird things about this little ghost girl. One is that she didn't have a face. It wasn't like she had trauma or something on her face. It was just where her face should have been. There was no face. It was just blank. And the other thing that was sort of unusual, in my opinion, for ghost behavior is that I think a lot of times when I've seen ghosts or when people see spirits, the spirits are either watching them, like standing in the hallway looking in, or standing in a door where you're standing at the foot of your bed, watching you, or they seem to be doing some action, like it's a replaying a moment in their own life, and they're unaware of, they don't have awareness of the people in the physical world. But this little ghost girl seemed to be like participating in whatever my mom was doing. Like one time my mom was driving my niece back to Stevens Point, Wisconsin, where she lived. My niece was a young enough child at the time that she had to sit in the back seat in a car seat. And so my mom got her strapped in, and then my mom got behind the wheel and looked over, and this ghost girl was strapping herself in the front passenger seat. Like I'm going along with you guys.
Now
Okay.
that would
so,
be neat.
Pardon me?
I said that would be neat to be able to see something like that.
Yeah, it's like, what? Do you need a seatbelt? Because you're already. Oh well, never mind. But anyway,
you
so
didn't
then.
need to have any bathroom breaks.
Right. So okay, so this little ghost girl. So every now and then we'd hear my mom. I saw the ghost girl again. She was doing this or whatever. Okay, so my brother comes home from California for a visit, and the way my mom and dad's house is laid out is that you come in the front door. It's sort of built into a hill, and so it's like the whole first floor is a block-out basement with sliding glass doors in every room or whatever. It was the 70s. And then you go up a flight of steps to go to the main part of the house. And as you're walking up the steps, you can't see the main part of the house. There's a wall on either side of you. So my brother gets to the top of the steps and looks down the hall, and there's, he doesn't see anyone except for this little girl in a white nightgown with long brown braids down at the end of the hall by where the bedrooms are. And he yells out, "Hello," and the little girl scurries into my mom and dad's bedroom. And then he hears my mom yell "hello" from a different bedroom, and she comes out to greet them. And he's like, after they hello, hugs, whatever, he's like, who's here? And my mom goes, "What do you mean who's here?" And he goes, "Who's the little girl?" And my mom goes, "What little girl?" And he's like, "The little girl that just ran into your room." My mom's like, "A little girl ran into my room?" So they go down and look, and of course there's nobody there. So after we, heard the story that Randall saw my mom's little ghost girl, we're like, "So do you believe in ghosts?" And he's like, "You see one little apparition and everybody expects you to change your whole worldview." So I don't know if he would say now if he believes in ghosts or not, but he saw apparently the same little girl. And the interesting conclusion to the little girl ghost story is that years later, in fact, just probably, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago, my mom and I both took some Reiki classes. And do you guys know what Reiki is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so like healing energy that you channel. And we did the first class, and then we did the second class. And when you do the second class, this is about a year after the first class, they give you, there are like these energetic symbols that you can use to access different kinds of energy. And one of them, supposedly you could, open up the past and the future and get information that you needed to know for healing. And so my mom, the night after we completed the class, she said that she was sitting in her bedroom waiting to use the bathroom. My dad was in the bathroom. And she was in a rocking chair that they have in their room. And she was rocking, and she decided she would use this Reiki symbol to try to find out who this little ghost girl was or what the story was. And then she said, so she did the symbol, and as soon as she did it, she felt this little girl. She thought that the little girl was in the room, and then she saw the little girl. And as my mom was telling the story, she started crying. My mom has an Irish mom, but she has a Norwegian dad, and my mom definitely has a Norwegian sensibility. She's not one who cries easily at all. And we're like, well, Mom, what was it? Who did you see? And she said, it was me. The little ghost girl was her. And because, this time the little ghost girl had a face. And she said that the little ghost girl looked really sad, and she just reached her arms out, and the little ghost girl came into her lap and sat down, and my mom rocked her and held her, and then the girl disappeared.
Oh.
And, you know, if you guys, I don't know if you've had shamanic practitioners on your show, but there is a shamanic practice of something called soul retrieval, which the theory is that if you have a traumatic experience, part of your soul's energy, like your very life force, can break off and be stuck in a certain place and time, or you've lost access to it. And one of the shaman's healing tasks is to find these lost soul parts and call them back, if they're willing to come back, and if you, as an adult or whatever you're having this done, are willing to accept them. And I think that my mom, without even knowing what it was, did her own soul retrieval. I think that she said that when she was around that age, they moved from, she and her mom and dad moved from the Irish family home in St. Paul with lots of people and lots of parties and, gaiety and drama and attention to, my grandpa had finally, or just graduated from law school, so then they moved away to a small town, a big empty house, and she just felt really, very keenly the loss of all this love and attention of the Irish relatives. So that's what we think was the catalyst for her, trauma at that age, just, her family situation changing. So I thought that was a pretty cool story.
Now, which brother was that lives in California?
That's Randall.
It's Randall. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to write them all down, and you got you got a ton of them, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I use pen names for some of them and not for others in my book, so I should write them all down to look and see who I called what in my book. I did get permission from all my siblings to write what I did about them, just thinking that would be probably a good thing to do. So.
Well, our time is jumped right on out here ahead of us, so I think what we'll do is we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, probably somewhere around 6-7 minutes, something like that. So give you time to get something to drink, and everybody can stretch their legs. Just remember that if you're not here with us, please come on over to para-x.com, and you will see a little button there that says Show Chat. Click on it and click on the player at the top, and you'll be able to hear us. If you do have questions, private chat them to Jeffrey, Craig, or myself, and we'll get them right on. So, Craig, why don't you take us out for our first break here?
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening in tonight. You are listening to the Paranormal View on the Para-X Radio Network. We'll be right back.
Don't go away. The Paranormal View will be right back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Paranormal View right here on the Para-X Radio Network. I want to thank everybody for being here tonight, and to those listening from around the world. And tonight, we do have listeners from the U.S., the U.K., Australia, and this secret place called Other. We still haven't figured out where that's at yet, but we're glad you
somewhere
are
in Pennsylvania.
And if you are over here in chat and you got questions, private chat them to Craig, Jeffrey, or myself, and we'll get them right over to Annie. If you're not here with us, then you can come on over to para-x.com, and you'll see a little button there that says Show Chat. Click on that, and a player button up at the top, and click play, and you'll be right in here with us. Before we continue, though, I want to let everybody know a little bit here. Patsy or Nyla, which one she has in there, is not in here tonight. I had to take her to the emergency room today about 1 o'clock, and they're going to keep her overnight for observation. She just had some blood issues in her bowels, and they are just checking that out. They think it's nothing real serious, like divers, ticklies, something or other, whatever it is. So hopefully she should be back home tomorrow. So with that, Annie, let's get back to you. And I know I've got a lot of questions, and I know Jeff's got some, and Craig might even have one or two in there somewhere.
Yeah, I do, Henry.
I have to say that I loved hearing the Sam the Sham and the Pharaoh song in the break. Little Red Riding Hood. We used to listen to that when I looked in my book, when I heard it to see if I mentioned it, because my girlfriend and I used to listen to that.
Is that right? Well,
yeah,
good.
and Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. I can remember what the song is now, but we used to dance to that one too. But yeah, Little Red Riding Hood, and then the B-side, like the flip side.
Oh.
So that was cool.
Well, glad. Craig, you say you got a question? You want to throw one out there then?
Well, yeah. Does that surprise you?
Not really, because you had.
I had to wait. Okay, all right. Annie, I'd like you to tell us what happened to you at age 10 while you were walking in the fields and the woods behind your house. I found that very interesting. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think I do. We lived in mostly old farmhouses when I was growing up, different, here and there, and it was really a cool kind of environment for a kid because there was lots to explore. We had barns and old buildings, and there were usually huge old trees and farm roads and a pond here or there. And anyway, we had lived at this house in Lake Elmo for long enough that I had explored around with my brothers and sisters and the neighborhood kids. And it's, let me know if this isn't the story that you're asking about, but I walked over a hill and I saw this old white farmhouse and peeling paint and broken windows. Yeah, and I was just like, where'd that come from? That's so weird. It's like, I know where I am. I'm not that far from my house. We had a farm road that went past our barn and down a hill, and we had sheds and stuff on either side of it, and then I was just a little beyond that, so I was very close to our house, and I was like, oh, that's so weird, it's so cool, and I ran back to get my friend Dina to come and explore it with me, and we went back, and the house was gone. So, have you had an experience like that?
No,
Craig,
personally, I haven't.
I wish I did, but no. Okay. I just found that very fascinating.
Yeah,
because
it looked like
where that has happened.
Yeah, just super old, but it looked like it belonged. I mean, it looked like it was set in, the way if you built a farmhouse, you would sort of work with the land around it and stuff. But yeah, that was that was pretty cool.
Have you ever done any research and maybe found a picture of that house?
I haven't. I should have. That particular farm, I could probably talk to some of the people who still live in the neighborhood, but when we moved into that farmhouse in 1971, our farmhouse, the farmhouse we moved into was not terribly old. It was maybe from the 30s or 40s. It was stucco. The house that I saw was wood siding and did look old. I mean, old. I'm into historic preservation now, so I can recognize house styles and stuff from different eras. But that property, the whole area, we knew even in 1971 that it was going to be sold for development. We lived on I-94, Interstate 94. Just our neighborhood was off the interstate. And my dad at the time worked for, he managed a sand plant, and the guy who owned the sand plant was a millionaire. The only millionaire we'd ever heard of. There's a millionaire. My dad works for a millionaire. And he also owned this land and the farmhouse, and he let our family rent it for a reasonable price because my dad was, managing this business concern of his. But the whole time we lived there, we knew that it was going to be sold, and they were going to tear down the farmhouse and tear down the barns and put a golf course up, and it made the time there very poignant. So what I'm saying is there might be some records like in the county historical records, but the whole neighborhood has changed so absolutely completely that it's really sad. I did drive back there when I was writing my book to verify a few points that I was saying, make sure my memory was right, and it was unrecognizable, super sad. But yeah, that would be
My
cool.
hometown is the same way.
Pardon me?
I was saying my hometown is the same way. When I was growing up in the very, very late 60s, early 70s, it was virtually farmland compared to how it is now. Now it's all suburbanized, and we had a large farm and silo about literally a quarter of a mile from my house that had been turned into some sort of machine shop. And as a child, one of the games to do was to see how far into it we could sneak without getting caught.
I love that. Exactly. We used to sneak over to the radio station that was across the street on a dirt road called Radio Drive because it was a radio station, and crawl in the dumpster and steal records that they had thrown out. But yeah, that whole sort of lost in time thing is just very interesting to me, because I think that not only people but even places and times can sort of seep through again if the conditions are right. And one of the things that I talked about in Spirits Out of Time is that I have had the experience, and two of my sisters on separate occasions have had the experience of being someplace and everything suddenly shifts and you're looking at a different scene. Mine was the least dramatic because I felt like I was seeing my neighborhood, but maybe 20 years previous to when I was actually walking down this driveway. The trees were smaller, the houses were different, my neighbor's house was a different color, just like, what is what's happening? I just kept walking down the driveway looking around, so I'm like, at first I just thought, what's wrong? Something's not right. And then I started realizing, like, oh, the trees in Herman's yard are small. They're smaller. Like, they're not big. It was just very strange. By the time I got to the end of the driveway, I got out on the main road, which led up to our farmhouse, the same one in Lake Elmo, and I turned around, and everything was normal again. And then I just started to run for home because it was like, that
I would too.
Yeah.
Am I in Kansas?
Exactly. It was so weird. And, back in 1971 or 72, there really weren't explanations for stuff like that. I mean, I did read, I think this was later in the 70s or maybe the mid-70s, I read about Lorraine and Ed Warren. I loved the books on them in the library. And then somebody came out with a book called Phone Calls from the Dead. Did you guys ever read that?
No.
Is that the one with the sort of the gray cover and the really large white font? Phone Calls from the Dead. I think I have that. I love that.
Yeah, they might have different covers. The one that I'm thinking of, I think, has a black phone on the cover. But yeah, I read that and I was like, oh, that's so freaky. I never even thought that such a thing could happen. And I'm pretty sure that came out in the 60s. It might have been the 70s, but I did just check it out from the library a few years ago to see if it was still around, and it was, so I read it, and it's still really good. It's like, that stood the test of time.
Oh, yeah.
If you're interested in paranormal stuff.
Well,
but one of my sisters was, the story that I remember better of my sister's stories is my oldest sister, Iris. I'm the third oldest. She's the oldest. We're all sort of strong-willed and creative in our family. But anyway, she told the story of when we were still living in southern Minnesota. I think she was 9 or 10. I mean, I checked it out before I wrote it in the book, so whatever is in the book is what I got straight from her mouth. but she was carrying a load or a basket of wet laundry out to the clothesline to hang clothes on the line. If you can imagine a 10-year-old doing that now. But, so she's walking out and she's got this basket of laundry, and she said she was just not really thinking about anything. She was looking at the pattern on the ground of the sunlight coming through the leaves on the tree. It was sort of this dappled sunlight that was, moving and shifting. And all of a sudden, what she was looking at wasn't, a girl's leg, but it was like a man's leg wearing buckskin and moccasins. And she, what she saw was that the last remains of a fire, like a fire pit, small fire, and there was a piece of meat in the fire. And she knew that she was like an Indian, a Native American, who was, sort of closing up camp. He was going to get this meat, take it along for wherever he was going. And she said she reached down to pick up the meat, and it was black on the outside, like, charcoal black. And then the inside was still red and raw, like raw meat. And it was like a knuckle bone or a joint bone. And she all of a sudden was just like, oh, yeah, like a girl would do, and then she snapped out of it, and she was back, and she was in the backyard near the clothesline, and everything was normal. But she said it felt like she was the person looking down at this scene. It wasn't like she was an observer. She was the person in this buckskin, going to pick up this piece of meat for her journey.
Now, that is one of the stories in the chapter called The Laughing Boy and the Girl in the Glass?
Yes.
Because you list your different brothers and sisters in that chapter with some of their stories like that.
Yeah, and thank you. I know a lot of radio hosts don't have time to really, spend much time with the book, but it sounds like you have done some reading
yes.
of it, and that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was one of the questions that I was going to have about the different little stories in there with your different brothers and sisters. One particular one that I thought was fairly interesting, and all these right here comes out of the book, The Spirits Out of Time. And you had one chapter in there called The Ouija Board and Bloody Mary. Won't you tell us about all that?
Specifically the Ouija board and Bloody Mary stories?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Bloody Mary was, it's a game that probably every kid in America knows, especially girls. I don't know if boys do it the way girls do it.
I haven't heard of it.
You have heard of it?
I
but
haven't.
You guys didn't do it?
It's also in the current trailer. It's in the current trailer for the third Paranormal Activity movie.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. Well, yeah. Okay, so
that's
one of the things.
That's a fun.
That's what?
Sorry, I was going to say it's a fun trailer. The movies themselves are riotously funny, most likely inadvertently so. But to people like us, we're like, I don't think so. But yeah, if you go on like YouTube and look for Paranormal Activity 3 and look for the trailer, just watch the they do it with the camera looking into the mirror, and it's a very well done scene.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, we scared ourselves silly, but something weird happened this time when we were doing it. So that was one of the things that young girls, it was like you would do in your 4th, 5th, 6th grader. You go in the bathroom, stand in front of the mirror, and chant together, I don't believe in Bloody Mary, I don't believe in Bloody Mary. And supposedly Bloody Mary was supposed to come through the mirror, and Bloody Mary, my understanding was that it was Mary, Queen of Scots, or else Mary, King Henry VIII's daughter, who had, tried to have Elizabeth killed or whatever, but it was, some bloody monarch from England. And so, sort of, bad news, not necessarily what you want in your bathroom. And one of my girlfriends had a bathroom that had a mirror above the sink and then a mirrored medicine cabinet on the opposite wall. And that was really scary because if you stood there, it was like infinite reflection, because it's a mirror facing a mirror. So that was super freaky. Nothing ever happened in that bathroom. But one time when we were in school, we were in grade school, and a bunch of my friends and I came in at recess and turned off the light in the school bathroom and stood in front of that bathroom mirror and did the Bloody Mary thing. I don't believe in Bloody Mary, don't believe in Bloody Mary. And all of a sudden somebody screamed, and then we all started running out. But I didn't see a ghost, but what I did see was this, I just call it the energy grid. I don't know, there's probably a different name for it, but it's like a grid of moving lights. It's like chicken wire of moving lights that I see on different occasions. And usually when I see it, it's in the periphery of my vision. But I think it is a form of seeing things on the astral plane. And I've seen this energy grid in enough scenarios. I've seen it in dreams. I've seen it when I've tried to get information about things or gain insight into something. I've seen it before I see these weird geometric light shows that I see, that I think it's somehow related to the astral realm, like it's some component of the astral realm, the way maybe water or fire or air are components of the physical realm, if that makes sense. So that was I think that was the main Bloody Mary story from that chapter. And then the Ouija board story, people ask me all the time now what I think about Ouija boards, and I believe that you can use anything for a positive or negative purpose, but I still, even though Ouija boards may be neutral, I'm spooked enough by them that I don't use them. I've had, in 17 years I've lived in this haunted house, I've allowed a Ouija board to be used twice, and I always do protection prayers before we start and after. And right now the Ouija board is out in the garage, and that's where it's kept. But I should probably throw it away, but there's part of me that doesn't want to. That's like, if I ever want to use it, I've got a Ouija board. It's like that you don't really ever want to use it. So, but anyway, so when I was a kid, my sisters and I, my older sister, I'm sure is the one who got the Ouija board and probably got bored with it. Asking she and her friends ask questions: who likes me and who likes who and who's going to get married and will I have a lot of money when I grow up and stuff like that. And then my sister Betsy and my little sister Maggie and I started playing with it. It was mainly Betsy and I working the Ouija board and Maggie watching us. And we would, just sort of we'd come home from school, get something to eat, and then go play the Ouija board for a while. And it got to the point now, as an adult, this really is like red flag. But as kids, we didn't see it this way. It got to the point where the Ouija board was really conversational with us, like, you girls look nice today, that is super creepy, but we're like, oh, thanks, whatever. And finally, one day we said, Ouija board, who are you? And it spelled out L-U-C. Now keep in mind, we were like 4th and 5th graders. If we were thinking the devil, we would say the devil, or possibly Satan. I-F. And we just looked at each other and we're like, Lucifer! And we ran out of the room, and my little sister, Maggie, who was 4 years younger than me, so, she was like a 1st grader or kindergarten, was like, who is Lucifer? And we actually threw the Ouija board away that day. In those days, we threw all of our, I shouldn't even say this on the air, but we threw all of our trash into the silo that was attached to the barn, and so the Ouija board went right out into the silo. So
That's something like
that's
that.
my Ouija board story.
Being young kids, I'm sure that things like that would scare you pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, how old were you when you first started having the paranormal experiences?
Well, when I was a very little kid, when we lived in southern Minnesota, we moved away from there when I was 7. So it was sometime before I turned 8. I started. I wrote about this in I think the first chapter, Yellow Eyes. I used to see yellow eyes in my room on a pretty regular basis, and they were elongated. They looked like animal eyes. I mean, now if I had to describe them, I would say maybe wolf eyes, although I should go online and see what wolf eyes really look like, but long and yellowish. And the eyes were like different sizes, and sometimes there'd be, 3 or 4 sets of eyes at once, and sometimes there'd just be one set of eyes. And it was really scary, but I saw them over time, and nothing ever happened. It wasn't like they ever did anything or nothing bad happened to me. I didn't have nightmares after I saw the eyes. So in a weird way, it just became sort of familiar and normal. And I think, when I was writing the book, I thought back on it. I still occasionally, I mean, very rarely now, like maybe once every 2 or 3 years, we'll see the yellow eyes. But I was like, what do I think the meaning of that experience was? It wasn't a portent. Nothing happened immediately after seeing them. My life didn't really change significantly. And the best theory that I have is that seeing something that quote unquote isn't there, that can be sort of scary or intimidating, and realizing after as time passes that it's not threatening, maybe was a really good lesson for me to have as someone who later moved into a haunted house. And, it's possible that because they were eyes, it represented seeing into the astral world, like this is an ability that you will have. But that doesn't really explain why they would be animal eyes instead of just eyes. So sometime before I was 8 years old, I had been seeing, this is my first experience of anything metaphysical or paranormal, was seeing yellow eyes in my room.
Well, now when you saw that, did it scare you? Or had
Yeah. Especially at first. I mean, I did have a blanket when I was a little kid, and I do remember just like holding my blanket, and it helped that I shared a room with anywhere from 1 to 3 sisters for most of my years at home. So I was not ever alone in a room until right before I got married. So, but my sister Betsy, who I shared a bed with, because I say in the book we were Irish twins. We are 11 and a half months apart. So for 2 weeks every year, we are the same age. But she and I usually shared a bed, and Betsy had this weird habit of sleeping with her eyes open. And I don't know if she still does it, but as a kid, I mean, my mom actually took a picture of it because it was so freaky. But yeah, she would sleep with her eyes almost completely open. Not every night, but often enough that it was, like,
that would be
what are you
spooky, yes.
watching for? And it was sort of like, what are you watching for? Or why is this happening, And most people do not sleep with their eyes open. They feel comfortable and safe. So.
Well, now when that happened, did you tell your parents that you'd seen something like that?
The yellow eyes?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember it being like, well, we will go up there and have a talk with the yellow eyes. My mom and dad, my mom especially, was super open to things like, paying attention to your dreams and talking about spirits and things like that because, we were Catholic, and we said a prayer before every meal, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, and then that changed to Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We had pictures of our guardian angels on the walls. I mean, the spirit world was not it was mysterious, but it was mentioned. It was sort of included in everyday life primarily as part of being Catholic. But then my mom, with her Irish background and her Irish grandma, her stories from her Irish grandma, told us a lot of stories about ghosts and things. And, but no, I don't remember them doing anything about the yellow eyes. I mean, they probably just thought it was something I was imagining. So.
Well, in the chat room, Kat wonders whether or not you considered the eyes may have been from a totem animal of yours.
Yeah, and as an adult, I do feel that I have some helpers in the spirit world, and I don't know if it is literal spirits of animal. I don't think that. I mean, say a wolf was your totem animal. I don't believe that at this point in my life a wolf is. Maybe when I was a little kid, it was. But it's like, what does that energy represent? You know, a wolf can be fierce when needed. A wolf is territorial. It protects its territory. I mean, there's a really cool book. I don't know if you guys have read this, called Animal Speak.
Ted Andrews. That's where I got my nickname.
Yeah.
It's through Ted Andrews. Ted Andrews and I were good friends before he passed away. It was from one of his guided meditations that I acquired the nickname Badger, because that's my spirit animal.
Cool. Yeah, Ted Andrews was super cool. I mean, his books are so cool. But that's in Animal Speak, which is one of my all-time favorite books. And don't have a copy because I always give it away to somebody. But I figure that's still a good thing. It's helping the world as the more people learn about things like that. But he talks about, like, if an animal makes an animal, meaning also bird or reptile, fish or whatever, makes an appearance in your life in a sort of unusual way, and it can be a physical world animal or a dream animal or, I guess other possibilities would be like a literary. It's just something sort of jumps out to be asking to be noticed, that you should pay attention to it, because it may have important lessons for you, and it may have protection for you. And I feel that my totem animals now, actually I think I will refrain from, maybe I did talk about them in the book. Did I mention what one of my favorite animals is? I think I did. I got to open my book up now. Sorry, it's been a year since I wrote it. Snowy Owl in the Cemetery. Well, that chapter, the Snowy Owl in the Cemetery, does include a lot of examples of totem animals and messages from the spirit world. But yeah, I think I did put it in this book. But one of the animals that I now feel is one of my strongest totem animals is the ghost owl. And once you start paying attention to things, and it's like you get different confirmation that something is valid, and then maybe as time changes, as you change, your needs change, a different animal will come into your life, and that previous totem animal will just, their help is no longer needed. So that was sort of a roundabout answer to that, but.
Well, time has kind of slipped right on by. I think what we'll do is take us another break. And if you are not with us over here in the chat room, you can do so. Go to para-x.com. You'll see a little button on the right-hand side about a quarter of the way down saying Show Chat. Click on that, and then you'll see a player up at the top of the page. Just click on it to play, and you'll be right in here with us and be able to interact and send questions to Craig, Jeffrey, or myself. So, Jeff, I think I'll let you do the honors this time.
Okay, well, you're listening to the Paranormal View on para-x-radio.com. Always makes sense to lengthen your URLs when you update your site. Oh, wait. With tonight's guest, author Annie Wiler, and if you're in Minnesota, you can hear and meet Annie live this Tuesday, September 13th at 6:30 p.m., speaking at the Robert Trail Library in Rosemont, Minnesota, as part of the free and open to the public Meet the Authors series, which is sponsored by the Rosemont Area Arts Council and the library, so stay tuned and you'll hear more of Annie. And if you're not listening to the show, why am I even bother talking to you?
Welcome back, everybody, to the Paranormal View right here on the Para-X Radio Network. I want to thank everybody for being here listening tonight. Appreciate it. And all those from around the world. We even picked up another one from Canada, so that's excellent. Appreciate y'all being here tonight. I do want to say that right after the Paranormal View, you have Joe and Tara on Visions Radio magazine is on. And Joe discusses his opinion of why the field of paranormal research has remained stagnant for years and discusses his ideas to change it. Tara's Paranormal Library recommendations also. So stay tuned right after the Paranormal View and another great show right here on Para-X. Tonight we are speaking with Annie Wiler. And her books, Spirits Out of Time and House of Spirits and Whispers. So we want to get right back into this because she has some really good stories that she tells. One of the chapters that you had was dealing with a death knock. Have you ever heard a death knock?
Have I ever heard a death knock?
Yeah.
No, I have not. That is a family lore story that was heard more regularly, I guess, with the Irish relatives. And let's see, my great-grandma, this is the Irish grandma that my mom was so sad to leave her house, she is the one who told my mom about the death knock. But the death knock was heard by some of the younger relatives too, when my Irish great-grandpa died, and when my great-grandma's nephew, who lived with them, when he died. So the death knock is just the belief that there's a loud knocking noise in the house right before someone dies or as they die, and it is, I don't know if it's the spirit of death coming to take their body, but it was actually heard twice by people in my family. That was some of the lore that I really wanted to get down in writing. And my great-grandma's story was that she was the oldest child of my great-grandpa's second wife. He had 8 children with his first wife over in Ireland, and then she died. And he moved to America with his new wife, who is quite a bit younger than him. And they had 3 children. They moved to St. Paul, Minnesota. They had 3 children, and then when she had her 4th child, she died during childbirth or shortly thereafter. And my great-grandma was 7 years old at the time. She was the oldest of these kids. All the other kids had stayed back in Ireland. And she was in the room with her mom when her mom died. And her mom said, "I'll come back for you, Maggie," which terrified my great-grandma because, for one thing, she's a kid. And for another, there is an Irish belief that the last name spoken by a dying person will be the next person to die. And so when my great-grandma told her father that, he thought he was concerned for all his kids. He brought them all into his room, and they slept in a cot in his room. And he did believe in banshees and the death coach. And Maggie had heard stories from some of the Irish relatives talking about the death coach. And I don't know if any of you guys have seen Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
The Coach de Bower.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the Gaelic is the Coach de Bower. Darby O'Gill is one of my favorite films.
I've got to watch it again as an adult. I saw it as a kid. I was terrified. But yeah, that the death coach that comes to take away the souls of the dead, and the banshees are the, either the harbingers of death or the mourners, the wailing, screeching, sad, spirits that are never good news. So my great grandfather, actually I guess he was my great great grandfather, had all his kids, moved them all into his room so the death coach wouldn't come and take them, and especially Maggie because her name had been the last one spoken. Well, he and Maggie, the other two little girls were like 3 and 4. So here you have an relatively old man at the time, and his 7-year-old daughter trying to take care of a baby and a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And like a month later, the baby died, and our family believes it probably just died because nobody was really properly taking care of it. And my great-grandma always felt bad about that her whole life. And then when she got married, she had 9 kids. 4 of them died before they were grown up. And she lost a son who was 10 years old. His name was James. Actually, James was the bad luck name in our family. And the Irish relatives from that generation, my great-grandma's children, passed on, the admonition not to name your kids James, because when the kids named James in our family died young, it was a bad luck name. But so my great-grandma lost 4 of her kids, as one was 10, one was 4, and then there were 2 that died as babies. And when my great-grandpa died, he was in the hospital, and one of my mom's cousins was at my great-grandma's house with her because after the experience with her mother, my great-grandma would never go in the room of a dying person. And so she was at home, and my mom's cousin said that they heard this loud knocking sound in the wall, and the hospital called right after that. And my great-grandma said, I knew he died because we heard the death knock.
Huh.
All right, now I did not know that story until this cousin's mom died, because I had gotten, after I did my second Reiki class, I had been thinking about the women in our family and my mom's experience with the ghost girl, and wondering if this intuitive ability was, handed down, like from grandma to daughter, mother to daughter, and like that. And I actually had a visit from my great-grandma's spirit, and she told me like 3 things, and 2 were things that I didn't know, and I verified with people in our family. And one thing that she said to me was, the women in our family are psychic. She said, for example, I knew that my husband had died, even though I wasn't in the room with him, and I had no idea at that point that there was any, that was any part of her life that she wouldn't be in the room with someone when they died. And when I told my mom's cousin this story, she said, yes, that's true. She wouldn't be in the room with someone when they died because of her experience as a little girl. And one of the other things, yes?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Now. Okay. One of the other things that she told me was that she couldn't, that 2 of her daughters she couldn't control. And she named the oldest 2 daughters. And one is my grandma, my Irish grandma that I totally, completely loved. And the other was her older sister, who we knew as a single woman and a librarian her whole life, who seemed very proper and very, well-behaved and well-mannered and everything. And what I think she was referring to with that, because I talked to my mom about it after I had the dream and mom or that visit, and she said, well, I think probably because grandma, my grandma ran away and got married at age 16, and then the older sister fell in love with a man who wasn't Catholic and was going to get married to him too. And their families forbid it. His family did, and her family did. So I don't know if that's what she was referring to, but that's my best theory on what she was saying. And I can't remember what the third thing was. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'll have to look in my own book. Yeah, it's in the book. So
Now, you talking also, and I assume that through your the older relatives and stuff, um, that you all would talk about leprechauns and fairies and all that.
yeah.
What about them?
Okay. Well, and actually, I'm glad you said that because it spurred a memory of one of my favorite stories from that chapter of the book. So my great grandpa, when he died, um, my grandma had always told my mom, my great grandma had always told my mom, that when the Irish came over from Ireland, the fairies and leprechauns came to the new land too. They came to America in the trunks, hidden away in the trunks of the Irish people, and that people here didn't see them because when people were around, they disguised themselves as rabbits. And my great grandma always set out crusts of bread and little saucers of milk for the rabbits. And of course, the next morning, the bread and milk would be gone, and so she was, convinced that the fairies were taking these gifts that she was offering. Well, the younger generation that had been, my great grandma actually was born in the U.S., but the next generation didn't have the same beliefs about fairies and leprechauns that my great grandma did. But when my great grandpa, my Irish great grandpa, died, they had the funeral at the church, and then they all came back to their house in St. Paul to have something to eat and drink. And it was the middle of the day in St. Paul, which is a big city, and right in the midst of this, memorial celebration, a herd of rabbits came running down the hill, across the yard, and off, across the street and into a woods. And no one had ever seen anything like that because if you see rabbits, you see one or two. You might see a mom and their baby, but you don't see a whole bunch of rabbits. So they had to concede that maybe the fairies had come to pay their respects to my grandpa at his funeral.
That's a pretty interesting analogy, I would say.
Well, weird things happen, It's like, if pressed, I guess I don't know if I believe that fairies appear as rabbits, but it's so cool that at this memorial, this huge group of rabbits ran through the yard. It's like that's what makes life so interesting and magical. There are some correlations, even if it might not be a direct relationship of fairies to rabbits. There was some interesting connection that manifested in that way. So I do love that story.
Now, what is, I guess, the scariest thing that's happened to you?
What is I'm sorry, the most
The
mysterious
most
thing?
no scariest that's happened
Oh,
to
the
you.
scariest.
Hmm.
Well, the scariest thing that has happened to me, actually, is I wrote about in my first book, and that was that in this house where I live, my haunted house where I still live, there was a period of time. I'll give a tiny bit of context here. We moved in. We knew the house was haunted. Figured it was haunted by the spirit of the old man who had lived here before us. And because the house had been turned into a triplex, he lived in the back apartment. That was the part of the house that felt the most haunted. But he didn't feel evil or anything. He just felt heavy and gloomy, the energy. And so it's like, well, we can cheer it up
Now, is
and
this
brighten it
Leon?
up. And pardon me? Yeah,
Is
this is
Leon?
Leon. Yeah, this is Leon. And so, okay, so over time, where Leon had a secret, he had buried some stuff in the dirt room in the basement. We found it. We gave it back to his family. Thought he would go to the light, but he didn't. He stuck around, and he still comes and goes. And he, over time, I have come to view him as an ally in the spirit world, helping me protect and take good care of this house because this house is energetically weird. And so I view him as an ally and someone interested in protecting the house. And I don't believe that means he is earthbound or that we are somehow keeping him out of heaven, which I have been asked about. I believe people can come and go. I believe spirits can come back for visits. I believe they can help people on Earth. So anyway, that's how I come to view Leon now. But there was a time when he wasn't here, and I won't go into a long explanation of that. But there were a few months when I thought he had left. And during that time, I had two of the scariest experiences I've had here. One was waking up and seeing this man that I just called Dark Man standing beside my bed, sort of kicked back, looking down at me with a smirk. I have seen spirits here before, but I've never been afraid of them because they looked like a human being, just a human being, even if I knew they were a ghost. And this guy looked human, but he had a very ominous vibe. He had greasy dark hair, greasy skin, and a long black coat. And his coat had an oily sheen. It was super weird. It was like if you see gasoline on a mud puddle, you know, that sort of iridescent, purpley, rainbowy shine.
Right.
That's what his coat looked like.
Hmm.
So that was scary. He didn't do anything. But even the way he disappeared seemed ominous because it seemed very deliberate. I'm like, okay.
What, did he kind of go up in flames or something?
No, he just, when I saw Leon's spirit, he just disappeared immediately after walking slowly into my room. And I have seen the spirits of old-fashioned girls who lived here. And when they disappear, it's just like 1 second they're here and 1 second they're gone. But this spirit seemed to like take his time or be deliberate or slow about it. I can't really describe it except it just seemed like he was, there was something willful about it. It was spookier than somebody who just disappears. I'm partly combined with his appearance, I guess. But so that was one thing that happened. And then the other thing that happened that was the scariest experience I've had here was that I woke up pinned down in my bed by something I couldn't see. And I have been asked by people, like, maybe it's night paralysis. I have had that too. I know what that is, where you wake up and you're awake but you can't move your body.
Right.
That is a totally different feeling than this feeling, which felt super threatening because I could not move. And I was trying to pray. I was swearing. I was calling for help from my family spirits. I was asking Leon to come back and help, and I still couldn't move. And then after 20 or 30 seconds, maybe, it's hard to gauge time, whatever it was, just lifted off. It was gone. And I sat up in my bed. I had my light on. I reached behind me with my elbow and just like elbow, slam, jam, or whatever,
Right.
into whatever. I didn't even know if it was still there, but it was just like I was so furious. And now it's, I'm wide awake. I'm sitting up. My light is on. And after I did that elbow thing, I felt a tongue go into my ear.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be
man.
scary.
That was the worst thing that has ever happened to me.
Yeah.
So
I'd be at the Holiday Inn down the street.
if that kind of thing were a common occurrence and I didn't feel like I could clear the energy of this house, I wouldn't stay. But it felt like an aberration. I was really, really, really scared for weeks after that because I never felt safe. I didn't know if there was what it was. I didn't know if it was going to happen again. I didn't know if something worse was going to happen. But that was the worst. I am knocking on wood right now, but nothing that bad has happened since.
Now, does your husband believe in the paranormal and the spirits and things that's happened there?
Well, we just got married last summer, and he is open-minded. I guess he really didn't have any interest one way or the other in the paranormal, but he has had a couple of experiences here that have convinced him that something is going on. The one that he finds most convincing is that when we were first going out, he was over here, and I was talking on the phone to someone or something. I think I was talking to a psychic on the phone or something related to the ghosts. I hadn't written my book yet. And he said, he was sitting in the parlor, and he said to himself, like, all right, Leon, if you are a ghost in this house, I'd like to see you. And he said, clear as day, and instantly he got this image of a heavy-set old man, heavy jowls, button-up sweater, plaid shirt, looking over reading glasses, reading something. And I came back in the kitchen after I was done with my phone call, and he had just, done this. And he said, I don't remember this part, but he said that I looked at him and said, you look like you've seen a ghost. You're white as a sheet. And I do remember, though, him saying, do you have a picture of Leon? Because I think I just saw him. And I did have a picture, and I went and got it. And he was sort of freaked out because it was the guy he
that he just saw.
Yeah, and in his mind, that's more convincing than hearing tapping noises or things like that, because he knows, there's no other explanation that he can think of. He said tapping, maybe it could be something else, maybe not, but he said this, I asked, he showed me, and then I saw the picture and it was him. So, but yeah, he does what my dad did when my dad used to come over and help fix things. They talked to Leon, because Leon fixed everything here because he was a carpenter, and it's like, okay, Leon, I'm gonna do this project. So if you want to help, that's cool, but whatever. And I think that's a good thing. If Leon is around and listening, he knows that his work on the house is appreciated and he's being treated with respect. And if he's not around, no harm done.
I hear you have somebody else there trying to help you sell books. I believe your daughter saw.
Yes. Yeah, that was freaky. My daughter is very psychic. She's like my mom. She has had really weird dreams in this house. And one of her dreams was that, let's see, I'll have to see, I'm going to have the main story, but I might not remember every detail.
Molly?
I'm sorry. Yes, Molly's my daughter. Yeah, that's what I remember, and my great aunt Mimi. But she had the dream that she came to the house, and there was a woman here, red-haired woman, bright red hair, tall, skinny, with sunglasses on, hauling books out of the house. And Molly, and the woman was smoking. That was one of the other things that sort of was one of our evidentials, if you want to call it that. Smoking. And Molly said, like, what are you doing? And the woman looked at her, took her sunglasses off, and her eyes were just red rimmed. And she said, I'm helping your mother sell books. And Molly was like, ah! She said, as soon as she saw the eyes, she knew she was talking to a ghost. But I said, well, your description is so much like Great Aunt Mimi. This is my grandma's older sister, the one that supposedly was hard to control. But she was very tall, well, for the time, but very thin, and dyed her hair bright red, because she had red hair when she was younger. And when we knew her, she smoked like everybody did in the 60s. And she worked as a librarian, and she had very, very fair skin, and her eyes, when she was tired, from eye strain, her eyes were super red. And so I said, the only thing that I don't know, I want to check with Grandma and Grandpa to make sure she smoked, because I feel like I remember her smoking at parties. And they're like, oh, yeah, she smoked like a chimney. Okay, so that was Mimi. And Molly had just spent some time living in the old Irish family homestead, helping take care of one of our great aunts, and she slept in Mimi's old room. So I feel that there may have been some energetic connection there, just from spending that much time in Mimi's old room.
Well, that's pretty interesting. We also here on ParaX have a thing called ParaX Vision, which people films documentaries and segments and different things like that, and they show the video on ParaX Vision. And
Cool.
there are times that we also do live investigations and show it live on ParaX Vision while it's happening. What if we was to talk Dave into coming and doing a live investigation put on ParaX Vision in your house?
That would be great. That'd be super cool. Who is Dave? I'm sorry.
Dave is the owner of ParaX here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. And you can also go to paraxvision.com and you can see ParaX Vision, or you can go to para-x.com and see the regular chat room. So
That's
we
cool.
do that from time to time, do different live investigations.
Oh, that would be so cool.
And
Yeah.
there's a couple others that also does it. They are known as Ghost Soldiers, and it's Pat and Doug. And they go to these different places and also do a filming, and they do a documentary on their show on Monday nights on there. So that sounds like a good road trip. Maybe we can work something out sometime.
That would be totally cool. I only have one request for people who come to my house, guests or investigators, that the spirits be treated with respect.
Oh yeah,
there's-
nobody with us does any kind of provoking or anything like that.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, but
yeah.
you let me know. Yeah, keep me posted. I'm
Oh.
so interested in learning more about this house. Actually, we had, I know we're just about out of time, we had some 7th grade paranormal investigators here a few months ago, and they came up with an idea that no one else has tried, and it was really cool. They put a motion detector by this haunted door, and there's a spotlight on the door which goes off and on. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It seems to like women and teenage girls or respond more when they're around than when men are around. But this light was going off and on all night when these kids were here, and then they put their motion detector by it and filmed, and they showed that there was a correlation between, we're all far away, and the motion detector would go off and the light would either go off on. So it's like, that was good thinking. I never thought of that. You're capturing something moving that we can't see that is related to this light.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Well, your house
Yeah.
does sound awful interesting, so that maybe we can work something out. I'll talk to Dave and these other guys and see if sometime we can't do something like that.
That would be so cool. I'd love to meet you
Now,
guys.
before we forget, since we are winding down, do you want to say anything about your magical afternoon tarot and tea and your haunted tea parties at your home?
Oh, let's see. I do offer haunted tea parties at my home. I started those because so many people wanted to come and see my house, and I decided that was a good way to do it. It's about a 2-hour event. There's information on my website, but I always invite the spirits to come to the haunted tea parties. I would say about half the time or a little more, they do. Something happens. We've also started having like weird coincidences happening, like two long-lost friends who hadn't seen each other for 9 years, who had been in each other's weddings. One was from one part of the state and one was from here, and they both ended up at the same tea party. And that was just like, they'd been searching for each other and couldn't find, the one wasn't on Facebook or anything, and all of a sudden they're here in the living room together, and we all just watched. It was just, very heartfelt reunion. It's like, that's interesting. So the tea parties runs from April through October. I'm almost all booked up this year. I've got probably one more opportunity for a tea party. Tarot tea parties, that's I do in conjunction with a really cool tarot author and teacher. And then I hope this is okay, I do have a book coming out next year. It's sort of early to talk about it, but it's coming out next year from Tor Forge, which is part of Macmillan, and it's called Trucker Ghost Stories. So
That was my next question.
Yeah.
oh, cool.
No, that's,
Thanks.
that's fine.
Yeah,
And you can
Trucker Ghost Stories.
you can go ahead and give your website out also.
Okay, AnnieWilder.com. Keeping it really simple.
It's very easy.
And there are links. Yeah, there are links on that site to the Facebook page for Trucker Ghost Stories, Annie Wilder, the Twitter page, and all that.
That sounds like
What was
Jeff.
that?
That's Jeff
It's
doing
what's known
something.
as out of nowhere, my next door neighbor decides to suddenly start doing construction. Thank you very much. Need my own Leon to go over and smack him around.
Who does construction on Saturday night?
I don't know. The sun has started to go down, and you'd think, I guess he decided, well, no, it's not hot no more.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's been really cool outside today. It's been in the 90s and 100s, and today it's been like in the 70s. So I'm like, geez, you know, hey.
That's nice then. Now, Annie, I want you to stay on until after we get off, and we'll talk with you for a few minutes.
Sounds good.
So, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and give out all of our sites and how they can listen to our podcasts and read the story and everything?
Certainly. Well, we're certainly at the paranormalview.com, as well as on my own website. It wasn't a hedge, and I had a rifle. We have my website has its own Paranormal View page, jeffgould.net, GEOFFGOULD.net/2011PNV.htm. And there you can link to each of the respective shows' reports. Like this show will have its own report typing of what we spoke about. Also links to Annie's websites, her books she recommended. I found the phone call from the dead book you and I have.
Cool.
And her Facebook page, her Twitter page, her Trucker Project page, her Tea Party, just about every link to promote her sites will be on there. And also embedded will be this podcast of tonight's show. And if you go to Facebook and just put in the Paranormal View, you'll be able to find us really easy. And I'm going to go close the other door because I think that's open. I'll let Henry close us out. Sorry.
Okay. And also, you can follow the Paranormal View on Facebook also. We have our own Facebook page, so you can go there and see different things about our show. Like Jeff also said, paranormalview.com. That is a good little page there. And if you are needing to send us an email for anything, you can go to it's the Paranormal View fans at gmail.com. If you would like for the Paranormal View to come and do a conference or a speaking engagement or anything like that, feel free to drop us a line and we can work something out, I'm sure. Our time is kind of run right on by. Have you guys got any final questions that you might have for Annie? Craig?
No, no, I'm good.
I thought you fell asleep.
No, I was reading what Pat just wrote in the chat room. I apologize.
Well,
I can't do two things at once, Henry.
I understand that. You do need to get Annie's books though. It's written really well, and it's about her family, the different ghost stories in her family, and the paranormal things that's happened to her, which sounds pretty cool. It's in Minnesota. Is that in southern Minnesota?
Actually, I now live outside of the Twin Cities area, just about 10-15 minutes from St. Paul.
Okay. I spent 4 years in North Dakota, so I've been through that way going up there.
Were you anywhere close to Deadwood?
No, I was not. I was in Minot, North Dakota.
But she was in like Black Hills and Dakotas, and I was like, I just watched all of Deadwood, so now I'm...
Yeah, the furthest that I was over that way, I was at Theodore Roosevelt National Park.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I think that time has just kind of flown by. I do want to thank you again for being on and doing the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again. And I found your ghost story segment, by the way. I like the red outfit. What I'll do is I'll edit that down and I'll embed that onto the page as well.
Oh, thank you. It's sort of cumbersome to tell people, no, go 6 minutes and 30 seconds in because there's a different segment before this. But yeah, thanks. I hope people enjoy it. It was fun to do.
Now, is most of your brothers and sisters back in the area where you're living at now?
Yes, I have one brother out in California still, and one in Arizona, and then one sister lives a little bit farther away in Wisconsin. But most of us are right around the Twin Cities area.
And your mom is still living, right?
Mom and dad, yeah,
Now,
I'm very lucky.
was your dad into the paranormal, or did he have anything to do with that?
Well, not into the paranormal. I mean, he was like his dad was a Montana farmer, but he has a like his dad did dowsing, water dowsing, and my dad does that, and he also his um, father and he were interested in Edgar Casey and his teachings about healing. And so, if you guys know, I'm pretty sure you've heard of Edgar Casey, like the
Oh
sleeping
yeah.
prophet. Yeah. So, in those ways that, um, just awareness that there's something larger going on than just the mundane physical world, but with a sort of low key farmer approach to things. I don't know if that explains it well, but like my grandpa had lip cancer from smoking unfiltered cigarettes, and his doctor up in North Dakota or Montana couldn't do anything. My dad said my dad was about 6 at the time. My grandpa had to go down to this healing remedy place in Missouri, or yeah, St. Louis. It was down south, um, and I think it was Missouri. But anyway, this guy wasn't a doctor, but he had this remedy for cancer, and it involved putting a poultice on twice a day. And after 3 weeks, my grandpa's tumor just came out on the poultice one day, and he had this little hole in his lip. He couldn't whistle for the rest of his life. But he felt that the traditional medical profession did get this place shut down, even though the people who went there, thought their lives had been saved by working with this doctor. So
Well,
sort of
that's
an
why it was.
openness to, yeah, exactly. Can we just say that? But but sort of like an openness to a different way of looking at things. So yeah, my dad probably less into talking about dreams and stuff like that, but in a just down to earth way, recognize that there's more going on
Well, now,
than
do
we
you
acknowledge.
do you do any investigations?
I don't because I don't feel like I have time. Actually, when you read off the list of Facebook pages, Twitter, websites, like I I feel I have a hard time keeping up with all my online stuff. But I sort of feel also like my living in my house is sort of like an ongoing investigation. Like I have described it as a Scooby Doo episode that never ends. You know, we just found my husband cleaned out the garage, which I didn't clean out when I moved here. It was very neat and tidy from all Leon's carpentry work, but he got things a little, got my junk out and his new junk, and sort of reorganizing things, and found like this old handmade wooden bench that has been here since the house was quite old because it's painted the color of, like maybe the color of the house was 100 years ago. So we're still finding cool, interesting things here. I mean, that's not really spooky or haunted as far as I know.
Right,
Although
just
I did just
history.
hear a tiny tap in the little in the room next to me, but it's interesting. I love this house.
That's excellent. And and it's the history that also goes along with something that is real old like that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I love historical things, and actually, as we restored the house back to a single-family home, we have been careful to leave traces of the modifications that were made over the years. Like if there's a little mark in the floor that showed where an artificial wall had been or a wall had been erected, then we left that little mark there. Little pieces of wallpaper
Now
from the past.
you say you
Yeah.
restored it back to a single family home. What did it used to be?
Well, it was originally a single-family home on the street where people who had lots of money, built their homes, and then in the 1930s, it was turned into an upper-lower duplex, and in the 1960s, it was turned into a triplex. So
Wow.
we restored it back to a single-family home.
So. And I assume that there's a lot of history from that area too.
Yes, this is a very interesting part of town. Actually, one of the things that I do at my tea parties that I'm thinking of, my plan is to write a Kindle single, a short little book that's only available as an ebook, following up on my first book and including lots of pictures and things like that weren't in the first books, who some of the people were who lived in my house, which people wanted to know afterwards. I mean, I got letters and comments and stuff. Some theories on why this house is so haunted and things like that. And so that is my goal. That is my next thing I'm working on. Hopefully I will get it out in 2011, but if not, early next year. I will talk about it when it's available for sure. So.
Well, our time has just dwindled right on down, so I want everybody to stay tuned for Joe and Tara on Visions Radio Magazine. Until next week, which we will have as our guest Robbie Thomas. So tune in next week for that. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network, and this is Henry,
Craig,
and Jeff. Is he still there? Okay. Anyway, we're off. We'll see you next week at the same time.
Sorry, goodbye.
All right, everybody. Thank you.
We're leaving. We're gone. Paranormal View. Come back and visit us again if you dare. You've been listening to the Paranormal View on the ParaX Radio Network.
The Paranormal View.